Hi, welcome back to Africa in Perspective. My name is Nelda. Today we're talking about corruption in Africa. Everybody and their moms knows about corruption in Africa. Every time people talk about the African continent, it could be about anything. You could be talking about food, about weddings. You could be talking about African fashion, about the roads, about people singing in the streets. You could be talking about zebras in the savannah, and people will somehow bring that conversation to corruption. Like last week, I was at my hairdresser's, and we were talking about traveling. Like we were watching a series of this woman traveling around the world, and somehow the conversation naturally led to the topic of corruption. So, of course, I figured, you know what, let's just talk about it today. And I was scrolling on Instagram and I came across a video that I think you guys will really, really appreciate. I'm so excited to hear your comments because we have a guy here who's bringing a very interesting angle, talking about something that people typically miss when we talk about corruption in Africa. I want you guys to tell me if you spotted before I do. So let's watch the video together and tell me what you hear.
No African leader is corrupt. They are corrupted. The pyramid, which part is larger? The bottom or the top?
The bottom.
Okay, the bottom. So you have 130 million Nigerians. You pick just few and put them at the top.
Oh, we didn't pick them.
Hold on. However they got to the top. The reason you're talking about them is because of where they are only mirroring what is going on here.
This is exactly what I've wanted to talk about my whole life. Every time people blame African leaders of corruption, the first thing that I ever thought about, because even when I was a little kid, I've always been very politically inclined, and I always wondered, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, when I become a leader someday, I'm going to do my absolute best. I'm going to become very uncorrupt, if that's even an English word. And as I went through my schooling, I started noticing how much just as a culture, and this is me grossly generalizing, by the way, I'm talking about 1.5 billion people across 54 different countries. But as a culture, just the way I have noticed, even living internationally with other Africans, guys, integrity is not something we talk about a lot. So every single time, how is it that since we got independence from the white people, like the British and the Germans and the French and all of that, why is it that to this day, every single time we pick a leader, they're always corrupt? Don't you guys think that says something about the general public as well? That every single time you pick from the bunch, you're picking somebody who's corrupt? Let's keep watching.
Because you pick them from among you. No way if I toss a coin from 1960, it will keep falling on the head.
You're
Every single country in Africa says they pick a wrong leader every 4 years. It's impossible, Eileen.
But at the same time, there's a lot of corruption.
There is no corruption. I explained it to the first group.
Okay, I don't know why he's saying there's no corruption, because there's clearly a lot of corruption. Every single time there is funds set aside, people misuse them. They use them on their families to export their kids to schools abroad. They pay for their kids to go to fancy schmancy international schools. They buy themselves Range Rovers and fancy cars. How can you explain that? Nobody cares about policy, actual real policy. We're not building the hospitals. We're taking loans from the World Bank and from the International Monetary Fund. Where is that money going? How do you explain the loss of all that money? There is obviously corruption in the system. So I don't know where he's coming from with that.
No African leader is corrupt. They are corrupted. Because what?
I don't like this argument, but I'm going to hear what he says. I don't like this idea of like, oh, no African leader is corrupt. They're corrupted. My sense, and this I've said this in previous videos as well, I'm generally a very skeptical person, and my perception of humanity as a whole is leaning towards the negative side, in the sense that everybody's corrupt. Everybody is corrupt. But I think this idea of saying, oh, no African leader is corrupt, they are corrupted by whom or by who? Again, English is not my first language. Exactly who are we putting the, not blame on, but accountability on? Because who are we to give that accountability to then? Because these people are adults. It's why we put age limits to being able to come into power. It's like we expect you to have done the work to develop that self-integrity, to develop your ability to control yourself and not just run rampant with people's money. You're taking the taxpayers' money and misusing it. Then you're saying, oh, they're not corrupt. They're corrupted by what? But let's keep watching.
What you are giving them to do is foreign.
I love that you talked about this. By the way, guys, if you can't tell, I'm blind reacting. I have no idea what he's going to say next. But I have said this point before. One of the reasons Africa is having a hard time developing as a continent is because the systems that we have in governments that we have are all foreign to us. I have said this before. I'm a genius. I've literally said this before. One of the reasons we're struggling with our governments, with these republics, and I'm all for democracy, by the way, but I think we can integrate traditional African governance with democracy from the Greeks, of course. But I've said this so many times, we're struggling so much because these systems are foreign to us. They're not natural to us, but let's keep watching.
Let me ask you, do you know a single political system in the continent of Africa that was originated from the people?
I've said
So
this
how did you
before.
get your political system? What do you mean?
It's done through hierarchy.
No, the political systems you're using today.
Colonization.
Colonization. Why did you keep it? When you know it.
Okay, so I don't have an issue with the idea that we adopted certain systems of governance from colonization. I don't have an issue with that. As a matter of fact, I am personally not for monarchies. Did I say that the right way? I think it's monarchies. I'm not for monarchies, and a lot of traditional African governance systems were monarchies. I'm not for monarchies. I support free and fair elections. I don't think one family should be in power for the rest of eternity. I just disagree. And so I don't think there's essentially a problem with us having kept some systems that we picked up during colonization. But what I do think is we completely abandoned our own political systems and said, oh, we're not gonna go back to those. I think we adopted this mindset that our politics or our way of doing politics was inferior to what the colonizers brought onto the continent. And I think that's what I agree with, in the sense that everything is foreign. The tax system that we use is foreign. The way we go about making policies is foreign. The idea of parliaments and the way the parliaments are run in a country like Tanzania, for example, very foreign to a lot of traditional Tanzanian ethnic groups. So I agree with him on that part, but I disagree with this idea that we should have discarded them per se, which is not what he's saying, but I think he may be alluding to it.
Foreign.
Because that's all our ancestors knew.
But they didn't know that. They were ruling themselves. The former administrations, the Oduduwa, the Benin Empire, they all have what they understood and what they can. You thought you want to be like the people who colonized you.
But the only issue I have with this, and this is an argument that I've heard from people who are not against Africa per se, but people who speak a lot against to do with this idea of, oh, we should have kept our own political systems. If African political systems were so great before colonialism, why is it that they led us to being colonized? Do you get? Like, let me try and explain it properly. The colonizers' political system and their way of ruling got them to colonize others and to gain a lot of wealth and resources and development for themselves. It doesn't make it right. I'm not saying it's right. Don't come after me in the comment section, because I know you guys, you're very passionate about this. But what I'm saying is, if our political systems were so good, why is it that they led us to being colonized? People have argued usually that it's because of the hospitality that we had, which is very true. But I think there is something to be said with how our political systems weren't strong enough, in a sense, to be able to resist properly. I know that sounds very controversial. I'm all for the fact that we did resist, we did our best. But I think there was maybe a flaw that led us to being colonized. That is a proposition I'm bringing before you. If you want to fight me in the comment section, fight me.
Accepted what they left behind. Do you know, until recently, you have to go to Britain to look at your constitution. So if there is no original political system, how do you expect Tinubu to understand it?
So who should we put, a British person?
so-
No,
are you
you
saying that-
have to. Like
are you
many
saying that
countries
we
did
should
it, when
put-
something is repeating itself, don't repeat the method. Every change happened in Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, all within 25 years.
Really, really, really good video. Let me just save that really quickly. I like the video overall. I think he's brought up so many points. And the fact that he mentions Singapore, Taiwan towards the end. I'm very into Korean culture, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. K-pop, K-drama, I'm your girl. But the thing that I love about Korean culture as well is that they did take this idea of like a republic, but they also integrated traditional Korean values. And I think that is what I'm going to present before you guys. And tell me what you think. I like the idea of democracy. I like the idea of republics because I think they create space for more peace and less protests. If you actually follow, there are not true democracies in the world, but if you actually get as close to democracy as possible, there is more peace and there is more equal division of power per se. I'm against monarchies as a whole, as I've said. And I think at the same time, if we follow models that, for example, Korea has followed, you do take this republic, but you integrate traditional values, I think that could work really, really great. The only issue here is very few African countries are homogenous compared to Korea, compared to Singapore. Singapore is not that entirely homogenous as well. But a lot of African countries, we were forced into becoming these countries. The borders were drawn for us. So it would take a lot to actually come together and agree on what elements of traditional governance we're going to push together for. But I think at the end of the day, I agree with the fact that we are in a system that isn't designed naturally for us, or we didn't get to pick it per se, that could explain why there's a lot of corruption going on. But my sense is the corruption is just because people are corrupt. There is no checks and balances. There is no talking about integrity. We don't teach our kids integrity as a concept. We just let it slide. A lot of Africans are angry in the streets and people talk about it, like I said in the beginning of the video, but I don't think we're as passionate as we need to be. Because if, and I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm saying if we could make an example of just one person, nobody else would be corrupt. That's just what I think. But let me know what you guys think. I feel like I've just rambled on in this video, but I wanted to react to this video because I saw the first part and I was like, okay, I want to talk about it. I'm going to blind react, see what he has to say. But I do think that he has raised a lot of points. I still disagree with the fact that there is no corruption. There is a lot of corruption. I disagree with the fact that we should abandon the idea of a republic or democracy or all these systems that came in during colonization. We should keep a hold of them, but integrate our traditional values from different ethnic groups that make up our countries. Hopefully that will help with corruption, but at the end of the day, let us learn integrity from scratch. Like right now, if you're watching this video, if you're in a position of power, even if you're not in a position of power, whatever job you're doing, to what level are you practicing integrity? Are you somebody who's working as an assistant at a shop, like a shopkeeping assistant, and you're already stealing money from the till? You learn integrity as a person as you go. But I don't think it's fair to just blame the system and say, oh, it's because of the system that people are corrupted. No. I think we're just not practicing integrity as a culture. And that is where I stand. So let me know what you think. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully it's a useful one. So excited to hear what you guys think. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and do all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching.